everyone, and welcome to any new subscribers as well. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of December and the full moon that we have in Gemini on the 15th. Now, I think many of us are aware that we are going through a whole series of jumps of energetic upgrades that I know many people can feel. And if you're not feeling them, don't worry. But the fact that others are is evidence that they are becoming more available for us. If you're not feeling these yet, we are all on our own timeline, our own journey. But many are, and that means they're available for everyone. There was a big upgrade in the first week of November. Nancy Rebecca talked about this in our recorded conversation. There's another one that happened, I sensed very strongly, kind of overnight, 24th, 25th of November. We're going to have another one around the 12th of December portal. And we've got a very strong potential for a major upgrade at the Capricorn solstice. Now, the Capricorn solstice, I'm going to be doing in a separate video because I've got so much to say in this one. So in a few days' time, I'll be doing that as a separate video. But we have this full moon coming up on the 15th. This is at 23 degrees, 52 minutes of Gemini. It's happening Pacific time at 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:01 to be precise, in the morning, and it's happening UK time at 9:01. So see where 2352 of Gemini falls in your chart. The full moon is always the peak of the moon cycle, the culmination. So whichever house area it's falling in your chart, it tends to be a completion or a closure or a culmination of some kind, or it shines a light on what you were not aware of before. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. If you go to the link below, you can get a 2-part video series, and you can watch that to infinity for every update I ever do. It's not a birth chart analysis. These are teaching videos to help you understand the meaning of these updates I do for you in your life based on your own birth chart. So people are loving them. They're super helpful for you as the first step on your astrological journey. So let us take a look at this chart. So full moon in Gemini happening on the 15th. Now, whenever we have a full moon, it means that the sun and the moon are directly opposite each other. So full moon 2352 of Gemini. Now, first thing to notice is that we have a lot of planets in what are called mutable signs. The mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So here we have 2 in Gemini, Moon, Jupiter. We have 2 in Pisces, Saturn, Neptune. We have 2 in Sagittarius, Mercury, Sun. So what mutability means? It's chameleon-like. So if you natally have a lot of mutability in your chart, it can often mean you're very creative, actually, but it means you're very adaptable and flexible. You can see other people's points of view. When we have it in this general sense at a full moon, it can, in one expression, feel like things are all over the place because it's so malleable, it's so movable. And so there can be a feeling of kind of instability to some degree. But as I say, the great news is that it is highly creative in finding solutions. Now, Gemini is all about communication. It's about information, facts, very much about social media. And so the reason that I think important information, important truth, is again going to be coming to light here is that the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, is stationary direct that day on the full moon. And whenever a planet is stationary, moving into a different direction, here it's moving stationary direct, it is emphasized, it's magnified. So communication around truth, Sagittarius, is going to be magnified in a big way. But we are going to be having a lot of information coming out at this time, because Gemini, as I say, is all about information, social media, facts, ideas, etc. And Jupiter remains in Gemini until next June. Jupiter expands the sign it is moving through. So we've got a lot of information here. It can feel like an overload. So if you're starting to feel that there's just too much coming in at me, take a digital detox. One of the most important practices you can have in these coming months and really right through 2025, which is I'm going to be soon talking to my colleague, good friend, Kathy Rose. We're going to be doing that in December, about the month by month unfoldment of 2025. Soon I'm going to be doing a video on the themes, the main themes that I see for 2025. But whichever way you look at it, it is an incredibly eventful and dynamic year. Book more stillness meetings with yourself. Drop into your heart, drop out of your mind and into your heart. We've lived in our minds, we've lived via the mind so strongly in this lifetime. You know, the information age, the World Wide Web, internet, computers, social media, TikTok, Twitter, X, short attention spans. We very much evolved to work through the mind. We are now moving much more into an age of the heart. In fact, I think it's going to be a combination of higher mind, higher wisdom at a very high level, a galactic level, actually, of remembrance, linking into the heart, but it won't be this kind of lower mind, hamster-like attention span, which we've had in this lifetime. We're going to move beyond that. So this full moon and through 2025 gives us good practice. Whenever you feel that kind of overload of information, drop into stillness, bare feet on the grass, weather permitting, candle gaze, do some breath work, whatever your practice is. The yogic belly breath is fantastic for decompressing your energy. It's just a 10-minute video. I'll put that link below. This one, so simple. Everybody in the world can do that. It's so incredibly simple. And I describe how to do it in that video. So the other reason we might feel a kind of overload is there's an important T-square here between the sun, the moon, and Neptune. It's pretty close. And Neptune at one level can kind of give us fog. You know, what's true and what's not. I'm getting this overload, or he says this and she says that, and I'm just feeling in a fog. I'm feeling overwhelmed, what's true and what's not. And the answer to that is, using Neptune very positively, is to listen more to your dreams. Listen more to your intuition. Really go with your hunches. We get more and more and more, we're going to be developing this capacity to incorporate the spiritual, incorporate the divine into our lives, to operate from that level of being rather than the mental level. So this is, you know, a super interesting full moon from that point of view. So really do start to trust that, you know, trust whatever just pops into your mind, that this good idea to follow X, Y, Z. Keep a dream journal, keep a pad and pen by your bed. So as soon as you wake up in the morning, don't open your eyes, don't move. Try and recall the dream before you move, and then it's much easier to recall. Otherwise, if you open your eyes or you move, it's gone in a moment. But Neptune is strong here. It's strong because it's also conjunct the North Node. It isn't exact yet, won't be exact until February, I believe. And the North Node is our collective soul's path of growth. But it is very much saying, because the North Node is about to retrograde back into Pisces in January, it will conjunct Neptune exactly as I say. I believe it's first week in February. But nevertheless, the direction of travel is spiritual. It's getting a deeper sense of our own divinity. That's the direction of travel, very strongly emphasized for the next 18 months, because that's the period that the North Node will be in Pisces. But that's for a separate video as well. So recognize that so much of this turbulence that we're feeling in the energy field right now, so much of it is because the old system is collapsing. And the reason the old system is collapsing is we have so much light, high frequency light, coming onto our Earth that the two different levels of frequency cannot coexist in the same place. And always the higher level of frequency will cause the lower to collapse and crumble. And the amount of energy, which is what I think we're feeling in this full moon in Gemini, the amount of energy that is released is very great with that old system's collapse. And this, I was talking to Dr. Jude Currivan, the cosmologist, about this. It's no longer called chaos theory, she calls it systems theory. But what it means is that in that collapse of all of that energy being freed up as it disintegrates, actually gives us the greatest potential for a step change in our state of being, a step change in humanity's state of being. It has the greatest potentiality because everything is malleable, everything is kind of loosened up. So although on one level that can feel kind of chaotic and destabilizing, know that you have the maximum amount of modeling clay, if you like, to completely change your state. And that goes across the collective. And that is strongly signaled, of course, also by the recent shift, once in a lifetime shift of Pluto, which on the 19th of November moved from the end of Capricorn into Aquarius, where it will stay until 2044, January 2044. Capricorn, very much ruled by Saturn, represented the past. Aquarius represents the future. Greater, if we play our cards right, greater humanitarianism, egalitarianism, more freedom, although there are going to be big issues around human rights, civil rights, freedom of speech. Of course there are, because that is going to help us, encourage us to begin this shift of power to the people, to step into this sense of inner authority, which I've talked about so much recently. So, also, just before I leave, this very strong Neptune, which is operationally conjunct the North Node and also in this T-square to the Sun and Moon here, this is also all about compassion as well. It's about unconditional love. It's about healing. It's about compassion. And it's very easy for us to feel compassion right now because there's some big things happening in the world. You know, the wars, the extreme weather events, people are just in a moment caught up in. And it could be any of us that are caught up in those situations. So that is bringing about across humanity, I feel, a great sense of people coming together in compassion. What can we do from the grassroots level to help each other? And that's been really, I think, very clearly demonstrated in North Carolina, in Florida, with the recent terrible events, people coming together and saying, okay, you know, if other authorities aren't able to be there quickly for us, the people will come together and do it ourselves. So this, you know, these tragic situations in another way are bringing about this compassion. And just know, I mean, you're probably all aware that I've got this very simple 15-minute free meditation on a Sunday. I'm recently, and I'll put the link for that below, just this weekend, I suggested that we try and do that more often, every UK time, 7 p.m. every evening, if we can. Even if you can only make 2 nights a week, that's more than we were doing just on a Sunday. Because if we can step into, as a regular default state, we can step into love, we can step into peace, we can step into compassion, gratitude, joy, those emotions, we are automatically choosing the highest timeline. So we don't need to ask, am I on the highest timeline? You know that if you are living in love, if you are living in compassion, if you're living in joy, if you're living in peace. And interestingly, many of you know about Dr. David Hawkins' scale map of consciousness, became very, very well known, thinking around the 80s. Peace was actually ahead of love on his map of consciousness. So any of those emotions, know that you are operating on that highest timeline. And when I talk about love here, I'm not talking about the romantic love, the human love. I'm talking, as Dr. David Hawkins did, of love as a state of being. He talked about this love as a state of being, and you can meet people occasionally who just radiate love. They radiate love to everyone and everything and every sentient being that they come in contact with. It's just that's where they reside, in a state of love. And if we can do that, we are 24/7, we are upgrading the collective. So this Neptune conjunct the North Node and in this T-square to the Sun and Moon here, to the full moon, is very instructive in terms of where we are headed. Now, the Sun, another reason it's going to bring forward some important information, I think, as well as Mercury being stationary direct here, is that the Sun is conjunct the galactic center. The galactic center is at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, so the Sun is conjunct at the galactic center of our galaxy. This is where an enormous amount of energy comes with which we create our world. So, and Neptune all through this year has been exact to the degree, 27 of Pisces, 27 of Sagittarius, exactly square that galactic center. So this is, Sagittarius is the future, it's visionary. So, you know, the visionary nature of Sagittarius is coming together with the unconditional love and compassion of Pisces. And this is just wonderful to help us to imagine our future selves, our future spiritual self, let's say. Try and take a few moments out to meditate, to drop into breath work, stillness, to imagine your future spiritual self, who you want to be even by the end of 2025, and step into it right now. Quantum jump into that right now. You don't have to wait to do it on clock time, on linear time. We're going beyond that. That's what Saturn Pisces is about, the dissolution of linear time. So just step into that higher version of you, that visionary view of your future spiritual self, and just jump into it right now. That's a great use of this full moon in Gemini. And very much think about your dreams and ideals at this time, because Pisces is very much around those ideals and dreams. And although it's not exact yet, Saturn is gradually going to come into a conjunction with Neptune exact to the degree next year, middle next year, and exact to the degree and minute in February 2026. I really see this as a whole new episode for humanity, starting big time, February 2026. For me, one of the big themes coming out of this is making real the dream. So start planning now what your dream is and embellishing it. You know, imagine that you're putting the paint on the blank canvas right now. What is your visionary future? What is your ideal? What would you like your ideal living situation to be? Your social network, the kind of work you may be doing in the world, or no work at all. You're just working on your state of being, and that's absolutely quite enough. So just think around those areas, because making real the dream is a really big theme for 2025 and 2026. I think going beyond our old beliefs is huge here. And I'm saying that for two reasons. One, because the dwarf planet Altgira at 19 degrees of Gemini, is at the midpoint of the moon. Moon is highlighted here, full moon, and Jupiter. And it's at 19 degrees. So if we go 4 degrees from Jupiter, that's 19. If we go 4 degrees from 19, that's 23. So Algira by degree is exactly at the midpoint, which emphasizes it. So Algira is the dwarf planet connected to the Aboriginal people. It's on one level, it's about shedding old social programming that no longer serves us. I think we have a lot of that to shed. And it's also very much as part of the archetype. The Aboriginal people believe that dream time is more real than our 3D reality. Dream time is more real than our 3D reality. So we create in dream time, and then it's easier to make it manifest in 3D. That's where the stronger level of reality exists, if you like. But part of the symbolism is around shedding our old social programming that no longer serves us. Now, Sagittarius is very much about beliefs, and I talked at length about that at the new moon in Sagittarius. And with the truths, Sagittarius coming to light right now, many of us are going to shed those old belief systems that we've had all of our lives that have limited us in terms of who we should be, a kind of people pleaser that we may have been in our lives. We still have the South Node at 2 degrees of Libra. Remember, the South Node is not generally shown in a chart, but it's always exactly opposite the North Node. So it's around here. And the South Node is what we are moving away from. So this has been the people pleaser, the compromiser, the person that goes along with the crowd, don't rock the boat. But that is also, I think, something that we are shedding as we step into this greater sense of sovereignty and inner authority. And this is part of the shedding of the old belief systems that no longer serve us, partly coming to us because so many truths are coming to light, as I say, Sagittarius. Also, the mind is very energized here because we have Mercury, the mind, in a trine, very tight trine to Mars. So Mars energizes the mind. This is a very positive aspect. So what is being energized here? Well, where Mars is, what is being energized is heart energy, Leo, and also Leo and Aries, as I've said before, I think are the two signs most connected to sovereignty and our inner authority. So that is being energized right now. But also this sense of our future self, our future vision. And it can also mean, so see where Mars is falling in your chart, because that will energize that house area for the period of time it's there. Mars, Mercury, where that is moving, that will indicate for you what you're spending a lot of time thinking about at the moment. But in Sagittarius, it's likely to be, boy, do I need a holiday. I know that's how I'm feeling right now. I need an adventure. I need spontaneity. Maybe a sense of escapism even, but I want to have a sense of greater expansion in my life. And that greater expansion can come from visiting somewhere foreign that feels exciting and different. It can be a metaphysical exploration where you want to more deeply research the interconnectedness of all things in the universe. It doesn't have to be physical, it can be metaphysical. But it feels kind of exciting. And also, there's a sense here of how do I get greater meaning in my life than I've had to date, particularly if truths are coming to light which shock you, old belief systems are falling away. There can be a sense of, boy, I really need to live with a deeper meaning than I've ever lived before. Deeper meaning is part of the Sagittarius archetype. Something else that will help us here with the feeling of truth is that Uranus, the planet of truth, is in a very tight quincunx, 150 degree to the sun. So it's 24 degrees of Taurus, almost 24 degrees of Sagittarius here. And so this is really giving us a restlessness around, I need to express my unique essence, my authenticity in a bigger way than I've ever done before. I'm no longer, as I say, willing to go along with the crowd. It's a sense of, I need to express my authenticity and uniqueness in a bigger, clearer way than I have ever done before. That sort of a feeling, especially with truths coming to light. It's also a revolutionary energy and a rebellious energy that's feeding in here. And we're going to have a ton of that from now on, because its rules Aquarius, Pluto intensifies the sign it's moving through, and it's ruled by Uranus. We are going to see a lot of revolution and rebellion against the old way of doing things at every level. Also, the sun is in a very tight trine to Eris, dwarf planet Eris, and Eris is in a tight sextile to the moon. Eris has very similar symbolism to Uranus. It's also about freedom, about truth. Remember, she was the only goddess who wasn't invited to the wedding on Mount Olympus, so she turned up anyway and created mayhem. Both of these orbiting bodies are uncompromising in their pursuit of truth and their pursuit of justice, honesty, and greater equality for every voice to be heard in society, challenging inequality, challenging injustice, challenging dishonesty. So, great clarity here, I think, despite if we can get beyond the overwhelm and drop into our hearts and drop into our divine sense of being, our intuition, we are going to get a great deal of clarity about the way the world works and where we fit in with that, with our unique piece of the puzzle. Something else which is important here is that the Centaur, Nessus, who I've talked about once or twice before, 122-year orbit is 17 of Pisces. So it's conjunct Saturn. Saturn becomes exactly conjunct Nessus in late January and early February. The key part of the archetype of Nessus, yes, it's partly to do with abuse and people being abused, but it's also very strongly the buck stops here. No more. Enough is enough. The buck stops here. And I think we will see that very strongly with people, particularly late Jan, early Feb, when Saturn comes to conjunct it. Exactly. The buck stops here. We're seeing a lot of rebellion and revolution. We've seen it for many months with the farmers in the Netherlands. We're seeing it very recently in France with the farmers, in the UK with the farmers. We've seen it in America too, where people who may have been happy to go along with the system have been provoked into saying, no, enough, the buck stops here, and stepping into much more rebellious sovereignty, might I say. The other thing to point out here is that Mars is already in an opposition to Pluto. This will become exact on January the 3rd. Now, we had this on November the 3rd, and we had another hard aspect. It was a square between these two planets on the 7th of October last year. That was the day that Hamas attacked Israel. This is brute force expressed at a lower level. This is brute force expressed in the world. And the way I think it operated on the 3rd of November and around then was great id anger and great polarization. And we can see how that played out in the world very clearly. It is going to be exact again, as I say, on the 3rd of January and exact again on the 26th of April. So whatever was beginning for you round about the beginning of November may not complete until really the end of April. But rather than just expressing this at a very low level, really, a kind of instinctive level, as brute force and aggression, can be very explosive behavior, id anger, we can integrate this to be courage, inner authority, inner sovereignty, particularly while Mars is in Leo, one of the key signs of sovereignty. Another thing to point out here is we have an ongoing square between Saturn and Jupiter. Now, we had this back in August when they were both at 17 degrees of Gemini Pisces. This becomes exact again on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. It becomes again exact at 1 degree of Cancer, Aries, in June next year. And by then, because they've both just entered cardinal signs of Cancer and Aries, whatever is the issue here personally for you will move on. Now, I've got a whole video on Jupiter-Saturn square, which I'll put below here again, because I talk about a lot of the personal expressions of that square in that video. So rather than repeat them all here, but essentially they're kind of antithetical to each other, because Saturn is the past, Jupiter is the future. Saturn is pessimism, Jupiter is optimism. Saturn is contraction, Jupiter is expansion. And so the way this can operate for you is see where Jupiter, which house area Jupiter is moving through in your chart, because that will be the urge to expand that house area. Wherever Saturn, which house area Saturn is moving through in your chart, that's often where we have a sense of work needing to be done first, or a sense of caution, or a series of obstacles to that expansion. There are things to be done, work to be done before we can fully move too quickly and too enthusiastically into that expansion. And what happens with that, and it's to our benefit actually, even though they seem to be antithetical, because what it encourages us to do is, depending on which house area it's falling in your chart, those two houses, that we do expand, but we expand realistically. We expand pragmatically. We expand with a view on the long term. We expand strategically, rather than rushing too enthusiastically, which is Jupiter's nature, into it, and then we haven't thought it through thoroughly enough. So this square is actually really helpful. It's very common in the charts of economists, as I may have said before. And then we have the Capricorn solstice on the 21st, and I'll be talking about that in a separate video. So there's a lot happening here, and I think at that point those are the really major things I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And we are very well aware there's some very major challenges in the world right now. If you watch the nightly news, that can feel completely overwhelming. At one level, the world seems to be in a great mess, but actually, a lot of it, well, firstly, is it all true? That's the first question to ask. How much of this is true, and how do you know it's true? And even if it's partly true, we have to witness the breakdown of the old order. We have to witness it because it's important for us to witness the collective darkness that we can only see with this very bright light now shining on the earth. We only see the beetles in the corner when the light is so bright we haven't seen them before. But collectively, in some way, we have to take some responsibility for manifesting what is emerging right now, to know that we're not going to do it again, and also to work through our own personal darkness, because to some degree we all need to heal. with traumas from the past. And, there are various really expert people in doing that in energy transformation. I'm just a humble astrologer here who can read it from a different point of view. But with all that's happening, and I know there appear to be, lots of, yet another really big scary thing happening on the world stage, really just ask yourself, could it possibly be because humanity is raising its consciousness so rapidly, and we really are, truly we are. I know many of you feel that. Many of us are feeling more psychically sensitive. We feel lighter. We feel more connected to the divine. Our healing ability is stronger. All of these things that more and more of us are going to feel as we move through next year, the next 2 years, next 3 years, actually, in particular, we're going to feel that. So could it possibly be that there are those in society who wish to dampen that down or keep us in fear in some way? Because if you go into fear, you are, and I know it seems to be invisible, but in the quantum world, you are literally feeding and helping to make manifest what you absolutely don't want. I've talked about this many times, and I know it's hard to get your head around because you think, well, it's just invisible. But it is food. It is food, energetic food at the quantum level. You are helping to make manifest what you absolutely would never want to see in the world. So what we have to do is stay on that love and compassion timeline. We stay on that love and compassion timeline. More and more people are joining that. The momentum is extraordinary. And I know many people are holding meditations all over the world. From my very simple, humble meditation, people report back to me the extraordinary experiences they are having, and that the light is getting stronger and brighter every single time. Trust that. Trust the invisible. Trust that is, this is a completely unique evolutionary leap that we are going through. Nothing stops that. It's unstoppable. The acorn will always turn into the oak tree. The caterpillar will always turn into the butterfly. The water nymph will always turn into the dragonfly, because it's that inner time capsule that is activated at a particular time in history that becomes unstoppable. You can't stuff the butterfly back into the caterpillar. You can't stuff the dragonfly back into the water nymph. And in a couple of recent videos, as many of you know, that wonderful conversation I had with Richard Rudd about the new human, I'll put that below. And also my video, Metamorphosis for Humanity, ? Put that below. In both of those videos, I was talking about the big cycles of time that are all converging. Right now, we are in the process. We're in the mush of the caterpillar, in the chrysalis. It's unstoppable. So whatever's happening on the nightly news, it doesn't matter. This evolutionary leap is unstoppable. And we're just in the early stages of it, but boy, is it exciting. The more of you that can get on that timeline and link with people of like mind, then it becomes thrilling, which is a very different emotion to what you may be feeling if you're watching the nightly news. So, I'm saying this with great love and with great compassion to all of you out there, all of us, all the people caught up in desperate circumstances as well, which is why I'm suggesting we do that very simple free 15-minute meditation every day, every night, 7 p.m. UK time, if we can, because everybody can do that if they can spare the time. Even just do it 2 nights a week as opposed to 1. We know from the massive amount of evidence that alters the quantum wave structure and relieves the extreme situations that many people are living in. So, and just remember, it's very exciting because the light is the game changer and love is the checkmate. The light is the game changer, and love is the checkmate. We are on the road to a huge evolutionary leap, and we're going to see that and feel it much more strongly next year and in 26 and in 27. God bless. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon indeed, and have a wonderful full moon in Gemini coming up on the 15th. God bless. Bye for now.